Love
I'm
it. Yeah,
interrupting.
also got mine right here. By the way, sorry if you see me sweating because it's like 65 degrees where I am right now, and I live under the roof of like a very old house, so it's like actually pretty hot. So I'm just like in a tank top.
Hey, man, your show. You wear
Okay,
what you want. You don't even need to wear a shirt.
yeah, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hard Drive Studios, a show where we highlight creators and a wide range of media people from CrossFit and the sports industry. Today, I'm joined with Justin Tamane, aka Tamane Photography on Instagram. After a quick look on it, I found you started shooting or at least posting about CrossFit back in January 2019, which was the first year you went to the games, if I'm not mistaken. Leading to up to that, you met Pat Vellner and started shooting him and other Canadian athletes in January 2022. You posted a picture of Danielle Brandon when she signed with Rad, and this started something big for you as you became one of their main content creator, which led to you participating to the recent amazing Danielle Brandon documentary. Man, I'm beyond grateful to that you agreed to come on here. So welcome to Hard Drive Studios.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
Good to have you here. When did we meet? I was trying to like trace back.
I
We
think
started
you would.
talking.
Yeah, I think you'd message me at some point between the 2022 games and the 2023 semifinals because
Yeah,
we
I
ended up
think.
hanging out in Europe in
Yeah,
Berlin before the event, and I think that's the first time we met in person,
yeah.
or maybe
First
at
time we went.
Wadapalooza 2023. Were you there?
Yes, I was there. I was there. That's where I met Carlos as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, like what I love with social media nowadays is that even though we're from just across the pond, we just started talking. We followed each other on social media. I wasn't even that big by then. And I think you were one of the first bigger content creator that like followed me back, and that was like that felt super nice to get like some of the guys from across the pond to like see a little bit of my work. And then yeah, we chatted a little bit in the DM, and then we saw each other a little bit in Wadapalooza in 2023, which was my first time going there. But I think we probably like hung out in Berlin, which was really nice. So man, I gave a little intro. Obviously, I did a little bit of research, but Instagram is not real life. So if you just
No.
want to give a little bit like about how you started this CrossFit photography journey.
So, yeah, what most people don't know is that I owned a CrossFit gym. We opened it in
Oh,
2013, and then
okay.
um, we closed it in 2020 during the pandemic, but that's not the important part. The important part is in around 2018, somewhere between 16 and 17, I met Training Day Media, which I'm actually repping his shirt. He just
David, yeah.
was like, yeah, David. And we became good friends. He lives right near me, actually. And at the time, he was just kind of getting started in CrossFit, and he ended up shooting some athletes, and um, he was doing some running stuff. And actually, he was one of the first people, and I credit him for this, is one of the first people who had like, the on point grid where like everything just flowed together.
Yeah.
He had this like white backdrop that was really consistent through everything. So it was almost like his whole grid was white, and then in the middle or in the shots were like very curated shots that he had put together of different things. And yeah, so anyways, he was doing some running stuff, and then he just gotten into CrossFit and was at CrossFit Select with the crew there. They'd been to the games a couple times, and a
Okay.
bunch of them have been around. Anyways, we ended up going to his gym to do some stuff. Pat was a member at my gym at the time. He
Oh,
was training for the games and everything. And then we ended up going together to train with a bunch of guys. Like Sam Cornier was there, Josh Gervais, Pat, myself, Thomas Markhauser. I forget. There was somebody else, some other guys as well that were there. And it was just like kind of a big throwdown. And David came out and took photos, and we met him through that. Anyways, I ended up asking him to do photos for the gym. We started just like becoming friends and hanging out a little bit more and more. And then he said to me, he's like, why don't you just buy a camera and shoot the photos for your own Instagram? And he kind of like mentored me and showed me how to use a camera. So I give him a ton of credit for that.
okay,
Um,
cool.
yeah. So around 18, I started taking photos from my gym's Instagram account and just kind of learning and doing the whole thing. And he helped me quite a bit learning how to use a camera, settings and like all those kinds of things. And then in 2018, 19, I started posting my own stuff. I remember I bought a Sony A7 II right before the CrossFit Games in 2018. So I went to go
Oh
watch the
shit, you
CrossFit
started with
Games that year.
Sony.
Yeah, I started with Sony and then I moved over to Canon and yeah.
Went to the dark side.
I can't, when one day you hope to have like companies like Canon or Sony or Fuji, whoever, like, partner with.
Yeah.
So you never want to say the wrong thing.
No, fair enough.
But
Um,
I really like my Sony stuff, and it wasn't a Sony reason why
no,
I left the Sony platform. It was a different reason. We can get into that later.
yeah, of course. I think both are great.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
different
Anyways,
workflows.
I love it. But yeah, so Sony started on
Yeah.
Sony, shot on that for years and years. But that was kind of my first time. So I kind of jokingly post some 2018 CrossFit Games pictures that are like taken from the stands, but with the like not pancake lens, the kit zoom lens on the A7 II, which was like a 28-70, but it's like a F4 or something like that and
Oh
variable.
yeah.
So
And
I
that's
post some photos from time to time. If you, oh man, I don't even know where that is, but it's more of like a joke of like the evolution of things. There's obviously a lot of factors that go into the evolution of that, of like shooting on the game's floor versus not floor, but you know what I'm saying, the media pits versus like from the crowd with that camera. It's kind
yeah,
of a joking thing, but
yeah.
yeah. So
It's
that's
like
that's the journey.
okay, interesting. So you were an affiliate owner until 2020 when COVID hit.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like almost at the same time that you picked up the camera, started shooting with David and all that stuff for your gym.
Hmm.
What was the transition like? How did it have like you closing, like stopping being an affiliate owner and then you transitioning into content creation? Did you have another job at first and then had the content creation on the side? Like how
Yeah.
did you transition?
Yeah, 100%. So what I had done is we closed the gym. I actually moved across the country. Um, so I ended up, anyway, we moved from Toronto to Victoria, BC. So that's like East Coast to West Coast.
Okay.
So we moved across the country and it was pandemic. You really couldn't do anything. So during that time when we were kind of locked out, I'd kind of set myself this goal for a while there. It was like I don't know, it was like a couple months where I said, okay, well, I'm just going to learn something new every day or try something new and like Photoshop, editing, whatever. So I was on
Yeah.
Photoshop, like PH Learn or whatever that guy's Instagram is, YouTube channel is, Flern, something
Never
like
heard of
that.
that
I
guy.
forget what it is. I don't know. He makes good stuff. So I was like, every day he had like a Photoshop, like he wasn't putting it out daily, but he had like a 30-day Photoshop course essentially.
Cool.
And so I
Free?
go on there. It's just on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So I would go on there every day and be like, okay, what am I going to try today? And like, I tried like masking and then I tried like puppet warp. And then I'm not like super efficient at it, but I just tried different things. I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if I can like build myself a little logo and like use layers. And, I started
Cool.
learning right before I moved. And then I kept that up. And then I was like, I'm just going to post a picture every single day for the year. And just, this is kind of before reels and that. And I
Yeah.
was just like, I'm just going to post a picture every day. I'm going to edit something. I don't know what it is. And like, I was at home taking pictures of like toys, like little Medicom toys I had laying around or like stuff like that. And just, here's a little light, here's a different look. Like, let's just try something out.
Yeah.
And like, even kids' toy, like from when I was young, I had like a Fisher Price camera. I could take some pictures of that. Set up. I went out to the forest near my house, take some pictures there. Try to get the golden hour light.
Yeah.
I remember all this. My dad had a box of like Betamax tapes, so not
Oh,
VHS tapes, but beta tapes. The ones that like
that's old school.
it's old school, and it was like obsolete before VHS kind of kicked the bucket, right?
Yeah. Funny
So I was
that
like,
now you film the rat tapes. You
yeah,
went
now
from
it comes
tapes to
full
tapes.
circle.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, anyways, I just take pictures of those and like try to get some cool lighting, try to get a different shot, different angle, and like, took some old Walkman pictures, like just product photos and just kind of messing around.
Yeah.
Um, different edits, different things, different layering.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's what you do, right? When you start just like getting your hands on like a camera and then
yeah,
using every subject you see around yourself, like your family members, like what's in your apartment and stuff. So
exactly.
yeah.
I just saw that. You got your Mandalorian helmet back there. You can't see this. That's a Boba Fett. Oh, that's
Oh,
a
sick.
yeah. I'll show you after, but that's a Boba Fett poster that my wife got me. So that's the only thing that's up in my office because I've been
Funny,
very
right?
lazy in putting things
Did
up.
you like the show?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah. You
I've got a
prefer it to
Mandalorian tattooed on
Mandalorian?
my leg too.
Yeah, that's we bonded over that in Berlin. That's pretty cool.
I can't
Yeah.
do it.
I can't show. Yeah, here you got oh shit. So here you got like a Joker figurine, and there you got Mandalorian. Here you got Jack from Christmas.
Yeah,
I don't know what I
Nightmare.
said. And yeah, here you got like some Harry Potter ones. Anyway, big nerds.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome. I love it.
we're all just big nerds, right?
Yeah.
But so before you start like getting your hands on the cameras with
Mhm.
David and all that stuff, like were you always a creative person? Like what was your what did you do like high school? Like what did you study?
So yes and no. I've kind of have this like dual thing going. Um, I played a lot of baseball and I really love sports. So actually in school and university, I went to school for kinesiology and physical education.
Okay.
Um, so when I was in school, like that was a priority is training, playing baseball, and physical education. My intention was to become a teacher.
Okay.
Um, when I was really young, like grade, you know, 5, 6, 7, I used to like draw Pokemon and trace and do all those like visual arts kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is a phenomenal artist and is like absolutely incredible painter. Like you just be like, hey, can you draw this? And she'll come up with something. Like it doesn't matter.
That's
And
sick.
she can draw it, she can paint it, she does charcoal, she does pastels, she does watercolor, she does oil, like I think it's oil. Anyways,
Does she still do it these day to this
that's
day?
like she's retired, so that's like all she does
Oh,
now.
okay,
So
okay.
I've been like I've asked her to paint photos, pictures of friends, dogs, of we got a baby on the way. I was like, okay, can you give us something for the nursery? Can you do this? And like I just, you know, I'll buy the canvas, do whatever. You spend your time, do whatever you want, you
Yeah.
know. And she just will like put something together and yeah, she's painted photos of my friends' dogs for me. She painted photos of pets of mine. She's done um, portraits of people that look phenomenal. Uh, she's in I forget what it is, but she's in an art show that's like a Canada wide not just art show, but it was like a competition of
Yeah.
a painting she did of my cousin's daughter. Um, I don't know. I don't want to, off the top of my head, try to figure out what that relationship is. I think it's like my cousin once removed or something, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're
so
just
she,
surrounded with your mom with just with art
yeah,
from a young age.
and playing baseball and that, my dad would come to all our games and take photos. So we have
Okay.
so he's the one that got me into it. He has all the gear,
Yeah.
and oh, it's not right here. It's over there.
Okay.
But
Bro,
like,
for the YouTube cover, you gotta send me an old picture of you playing baseball.
oh yeah, I can find that for sure. That's easy.
Yeah. That would be sick.
Um, but yeah, he was at all of our games from like early travel baseball days when I was like 10
Mhm.
to when I was in university playing baseball. He would just come take photos. In the early days it was all film.
Yeah,
So like there's
for
some
sure.
cool shots that he's got. He's got one, and this is the one that you'd want to see is like I'm using a wood bat, I'm hitting a ball. The
Yeah.
bat is breaking in half, and you can see the barrel, the handle in my hands, and the ball all in the same shot. So it's like handle broken off, barrel, and then the ball is all in one frame, and that's with a film camera. It's pretty cool. You're not rapid firing on that, right? Like you're
Yeah,
not
for
shooting
sure. He
30
just
frames per
caught it.
second. He just
Yeah.
got it. So yeah, that's one of my favorite photos. It's super cool to see, and like the fact that it was on film
Yeah,
is
crazy.
pretty awesome.
Were you like curious about the camera? Like, did you
Yeah.
ever try to? Okay.
Yeah, I would always like pick it up and play with it if he'd let me, but I was always afraid to touch it if he wasn't
Yeah.
around because I didn't want to be the one that was responsible for breaking it.
Yeah.
So
Makes
I was
sense.
not going to touch it. But then in high school, I used to go to my brother's concerts. So my brother was in a metal band, and I used
Big
to go to
brother,
his.
younger brother?
He's older. He's a year older than me.
Okay.
But I'd go to all his concerts and bring my like Sony Handycam with me and film all the concerts. And
Yeah.
that's actually where I started to learn how to edit. Was I would import them into iMovie, and
Oh yeah.
what I did initially was I would rip an MP3 of the video and then burn it to a CD so I can listen to the live concert because they didn't have recordings of all their songs. So then I could like listen to his band
Oh
while I was like, on my CD player.
yeah, sick.
And so I had a log of like all of his live shows. And then at one point I like edited together like a little music video for one of his songs based off of the live performances.
Yeah.
And so
Man, it sounds you were like a very DIY guy.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of a good way to put it. And
Yeah.
that's like how I started, right? I
Yeah.
actually had a video in early YouTube days, and I can still find it, but a video from a band that I just put up and just like, like it's on the internet, whatever.
Okay.
And this is before
Somewhere.
like sharing and Instagram and all that. And it had like
Yeah.
100,000 views on YouTube from like literally almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. I always forget. How old are you?
I'm 36.
Okay, yeah. You do look way younger, but yeah.
It's that Asian gene.
Yeah, exactly. But so you started with, so you're doing a bit of both, but what made you choose to like stop baseball? Like, what was the transition?
I was old. I was
Okay,
old and there was no future in it. Like it was just
you
more
didn't
fun
want
than
to
anything.
pursue a career in it.
That's like if you said a career in baseball as of right now, I would be like, oh, I would do something with the Toronto Blue Jays or something with an athlete. And I actually got the opportunity to do with one of the best Canadian baseball players of all time, Joey Votto. I got an opportunity to
Oh,
work with him last year, but that was just like some fun stuff.
yeah,
But I would love to work in baseball and in sports in that way. But um,
yeah,
pursuing a career as an athlete in that is very, very difficult.
yeah.
And I wasn't that good. I
Okay,
loved
fair
it,
enough.
but I wasn't that good,
Okay.
So, um,
And then, so how did you discover CrossFit then? And then maybe, what led probably to you opening your affiliate and stuff?
yeah, so CrossFit came from I was working after school. I just had to find a job. I had applied for a position at a physio clinic as like an exercise rehab specialist, which is kind of what I enjoyed doing. But I got a really good opportunity to work at a clinic, at a physio clinic, and I had an amazing physiotherapist that I worked under named Rachel. Oh, I can't remember, Mattia, which is funny because I actually went to high school with her brother, but I didn't know that until like a couple months into working. Anyways, long story. Um, so I ended up working there, and our
Mhm.
massage therapist did CrossFit at CrossFit Newmarket Central and invited me. And I kind of started showing interest in expressing it. And I was like, okay, I would love to be a part of this.
What year was that?
2012.
Oh shit, that's when I graduated high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, 2012
Yeah.
was my introduction to CrossFit, and I'd started work. I had always been fit. Like I'd worked out in gyms. I had gone to like the typical Globo gym. Um, I actually, when I was in grade 9, whatever that is, I went to a performance training gym for a whole winter with the baseball team, and then we went again the year later, and I learned a ton of like how to do functional training for an athlete, not just like what we see as functional training now. So it was like very athlete and sport specific training, but it was like we learned how to squat properly, we will learn how to pull properly, we learned how to do pull-ups and like supersets and things like that. So that was
Yeah.
like when I was like 14. So I've been in a gym since I was 14.
Holy shit. Okay.
So, and that was before like training is as popular as it is now, right? Like now you see somebody who's 14 in the gym and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you're doing your thing. But then it was like, nobody is around. You're there with like the 50-year-old guy who's about to go in the sauna after he's done working out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that's
that's like
the
what it
old
was.
school times.
Yeah. So, um, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like,
No,
this
for
guy's
sure.
here just to go in the sauna, that's all he
It's
wants
just
to
what
do.
it was at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'm off topic, but
So 2012, you start
2012, I went into
CrossFit.
my first CrossFit class. It was a bring, friends and family, bring a friend class, blah, 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 blah. And it just ended up being really awesome. Did my first
Yeah, you
class.
liked it right away.
I liked it right away. And I was kind of already starting to do like, I was looking at CrossFit.com and different workouts and doing them in the Globo gym. And like, I think the first time I did Fran was like in a Globo gym with, like steel plates on the bar, try not to drop a 95. I don't even think I did 95 pounds at the time, but like, try not to drop a barbell, do a thruster. And I'm like, it's, like 6.5 minute Fran by myself in a Globo gym with no bumper plates, no proper pull-up bar, just like, doing like wide grip, the wide grip lat pull down kind of style pull-ups. Like,
people looking at you like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Because CrossFit obviously in 2012 was not as popular, right? If you were to Globo gyms.
Exactly. And actually my first introduction to CrossFit was earlier. It was when I was in university. We had guys that did CrossFit at my university, and I tried to work out with them, and I was like, this is stupid. And I was like, but I said that because it was hard. I didn't say it because it was actually stupid. I was like, this is just a really hard workout. I remember it was like, we did some stuff that was like squats and running on the track, and like some dumbbell squats, run on the track, maybe some V-ups or sit-ups. And I was like smoked by these guys. And I was like, all right, that was hard. This is stupid. I don't need to do this. That was like early, the end of my CrossFit, the end of my university is like 2011. Okay. And then got into the gym. Yeah. And got into the gym in 2012, opened my affiliate with some people in 2013 because I had a really accelerated like learning curve at the time.
Holy shit. Yeah. Like a year later, discovering CrossFit, already opening your affiliate.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I kind of started to do the CrossFit thing. And then I actually approached them from day one, and I was just learning. I said, look, I don't know if I can afford this right now.
Yeah.
I would love to learn, because like, here's my background. I've worked in a physio clinic for this long. I have an exercise rehab background. I've been in the gym since I was 14. Like, I've been doing this type of training. I think they probably saw something in me that they're like, oh, he actually does like kind of know what he's talking about at the time. I have a kin background, which was similar to both the gym owners, and they offered me a shadowing position, and I shadowed unpaid for like 6 months. So I'd be in the gym every day. And I was like completely okay with it being unpaid. I got a gym membership. I got to work out every day. I got to learn in that environment. And it was really accelerated. And they tested me like, hey, you're going to run this part of the class. You're going to run the warm up today. You're going to run the Olympic lifting today. And then I just started to learn the process, learn all the steps, got to be my own class. I remember like how proud I was the first time in the workout when you get to be like, okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah. That was like such a proud moment to be like, this is my class. I've earned this opportunity. We're like, as somebody who's like, I put in, like I said, over 6 months of unpaid time before my first class, where it was like, this is your class. You get to do this all by yourself.
Were you living at your parents' house by
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I was living at my parents' house, and I was still working full time at the physio clinic. So what ended up happening is I started to like pick up more classes, pick up more personal training. And I was like, physio clinic is stupid.
You're like, I want to do something else.
Yeah. I not only did I want to do something else, I didn't want to do the whole physio clinic, sell orthotics to everybody, like no matter
Yeah.
what your injury is. They literally told me like, oh, they have a shoulder injury, they should come in and do a gait scan and make sure that it's not from their feet. And I was like, can I swear on this?
Yeah, you can.
I was just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that. They're like, and then that became the metric at which I was evaluated for my performance, was how many orthotics I was selling and how many gait scans I was doing. It had nothing to do with the client experience. It had nothing to do with my ability to like run the clinic. I'm not lying. I ran the clinic with all the patients by myself with no physio some days. So physio wasn't even there.
Holy shit.
And I would have clients come in and I would have to go through exercise programs. And I remember like there was a snowstorm or something and they couldn't come in, which is fair, but like all the clients still came in. I still took them through their routines. I still took them through everything except for like the manipulations and things like that they were doing. So A, it speaks to the type of clinic and the client experience, but B, it also spoke to like the trust they had in me, but then they were unwilling to like pay me.
Yeah, I was going to say you probably not paid more.
No. I literally ran the front desk, ran people through their stuff, their exercise programs, and like managed their training, their rehab protocol. And they're like, oh, well, you get a 25-cent raise because you only sold one pair of orthotics this month, and we're going to cut your hours back because you're not doing enough gait scans. I was like, fuck you guys.
That's fucked, man. Yeah. So then you work your ass off for free, like learning, being around the gym for 6 months. Then you start doing your first class. I'm just curious because I'm very new to CrossFit.
Yeah.
I first got familiar with it in 2019 when I came back from Australia and started watching the Fittest on documentary. So how was running slash being in an affiliate back in 2012, 13? Like, how was it back then compared to now? Was it difficult to bring new members in? Like, how was it?
It was like everything to me. You know what I mean? Like, it was like the world to me to be a part of this at that time.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not anymore, but at the time it was like, it meant everything to me. To be training in it, to be able to compete, to be like pushing like the obtainability of like competing at regionals at that time. It was like, this was everything to me. Now bringing people in, those documentaries, the media pieces, all of that stuff was feeding the affiliates and bringing people into the affiliates. We'd have people all the time. Yeah, because I know where this is going.
Yeah.
I know where this is going, and I like where this is going.
Yeah. Keep going.
At the time, it was everything. And that's how I started finding it. Like the old CrossFit.com videos, watching the games footage, watching all of those things, you know, seeing how awesome and it was to watch the games in, I think it was like 2012 or 2013. They did the legless thruster event. It was the first time they did legless rope climbs at the CrossFit Games. Yeah. Right before the final heat, they had they did the anthem, they did a flyover, and it was like literally flyover, 3, 2, 1, buzzer. And it was like, holy shit, like this is cool.
Yeah.
Like that was one of my favorite videos. And it was like Froning and I think, I don't want to say the wrong people's names, Kalipa, I think Simone Paquette was in there, like Canadian guy. Like people were in there, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like they're making this something.
Yeah.
And it was fun to watch. Like it's outside. It was in Carson, you know, it was California. There was like the like epicness of that. And then I'd go down the rabbit hole. Okay, I'm going to watch this video. And then I found the Rogue versus Again Faster series on, you know, on, I think it was on .com, and it was like Savant.
Never seen that.
I mean, I don't know if it's cringy now, but when you go back and watch, or if you look for it, I don't even know if it's still there, but there's a Team Rogue versus Team Again Faster. Again Faster was a different equipment company. So for those two brands that come together to put on like a week-long training content, and at the time content was like whatever, but it was like Savant was I think it was Savant was documenting the whole thing, putting out
already.
But he did all the early stuff, right? So putting out this piece of media that I was like, oh man, these are just like relatable people who love to train and like the same things I do. It
Yeah.
was engaging, it was interesting. Like I can't believe that nobody has tried to that's not true. Some people have tried to do it. It just hasn't gone the same way. But like how cool would it be to have like your favorite athletes, even three and three from two different worlds compete against
Yeah.
each other in that way and like spend a week of doing content and training and
Yeah.
like, but before it was like professionalized,
Yeah.
before it was like all these people do is train for the games and like
Yeah.
you don't see them unless they're training for the games or whatever. It was very engaging. You got to see people's personalities, and that's what brought me in. Where
Yeah.
everything now is very, there's people who show, anyways, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm not going to say.
Go, man. We got time.
No, I was going to say there's people who show their personalities on social media,
Yeah.
and there's people who don't, and there are people that, and that's fine, and that's what they do. But
Yeah.
the people who show their personalities and you start to like form a fan, I don't know, fanship,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
for those
Yeah.
people. And it's cool to see because like you want to see their personality, highs, lows, whatever. Just like hey, here's my um here's my back scratcher for this week. Like
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about that. So it's cool when you get to see the personalities of the athletes that you're working with. And that's
Yeah.
like the segue. That's the rad tapes that to me is when
Yeah.
I've documented those. I want to show the personalities of the people I'm documenting. I don't want to just show the polished, here's like the best moments. I
Yeah.
want to show like, hey, this is what so and so is like in person.
Yeah.
This is what
Man, this
the
is what I love
interactions are
about
actually like.
this is what I love about the rat tapes, like, and it just feels like every time you watch, it just feels like friends on holidays with like a camcorder and just recording just moments and feels it. But I think there's nothing wrong with like very, very professional filming, like hype stuff. I do that too. And you've done some of that too as well, of course. But that's what I love. Like recently I saw a little interview that PC Patrick Clark did for Be Friendly Fitness, where he went to Haley Adams uh, at semifinals, and he asked her like how she found the last Star Wars series,
Yeah.
and she just went on for like a minute about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And this is not related to any of the workouts that was going on
No.
or her comeback to the games or any of that. And I commented, I was like, this is the best interview ever, right? Because of course, like you want to see the athletes training and like, all the season, all that stuff. But I think what makes you want to see these athletes and like follow them during the season is also the human side, and I think
Yeah.
that's what you guys do with rat tapes. It's really cool.
And that's kind of been the intention from the beginning, was to show those moments off. Like when we were
Yeah.
in Knoxville, like we stayed in an Airbnb with a pool table.
Yeah.
So, part of that episode, they were just like playing pool and being terrible because that's what it was. Nobody
Yeah.
was good. Everyone was just having fun. Like,
Yeah.
but that's what you want to see is like,
Yeah.
obviously the professional side of things. And that's like, the DB doc that came up with Rad is like the highest
Okay.
production
Before we
quality.
get there,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we fast forwarded like really fast
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So you started shooting with David, and then you met Pat Vellner and started shooting for him. How did that start?
So I've known Pat since 2015. No, sorry. 2014, I met Pat for the first time. I was at
Okay.
a competition in Toronto. So I competed a lot back in the day, and I did a
Mhm.
competition in Toronto. I think it was 2 days.
Are you
Can't
about to
remember.
tell me you competed against Pat?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And that's what I meant. But there was only like, because it was a smaller event, and at the time, like the like, for a guy to travel from Montreal to Toronto to compete, it was kind of rare. So he was going to school in Toronto. It was like me, and then some guys in the area, the Christini brothers, Brandon Crump, Pat. Honestly, I hate to not name other people, but I just can't remember. This was like 10 years ago at this
It's
point.
okay. Of
But
course.
so yeah, we were competing against each other, and I think I took third, Pat took second, and then Brandon Crump took first. So that was the first time I met him. And
Well,
then
please tell me you have a podium picture.
yeah, I do. It's on my Instagram or my Facebook or something. I'll find it for you.
Yes, please.
Um, so, anyways, at 15, when I was at regionals, Pat was competing on a team that went to the games in 2015. I was competing as an individual at regionals, and I was in the medical tent getting just like my shoulder taped or something, and then he came in with one of the athletes on his team, and he was just hanging out waiting for them, and I'd seen in a post that he's like, "Oh, I'm going to chiropractic college, which is CMCC, Canadian, some. Uh, anyways, the chiropractic school, but it was like 15 minutes from my gym, 10, 15 minutes. I was like, hey, yeah, if you're in town, like my gym is right down the street. Like, let me know when you're here and come work out.
Yeah.
And so he went to the games on a team. They did their thing. And then when he went to school, he's like, hey, man, I'm in town. It was like August, so before kind of everything started. Hey, I'm in town. Like, I'd love to come train. I don't have a car. Like, how can I get up there? And I was like, oh, I'll just come pick you up. It's like Saturday or Sunday afternoon. I was like, I'll just come pick you up and we'll figure it out. So for the first little bit, like I'd go drive to his place, pick him up. We work out for a little while, drop him off. And then he got a car a couple weeks later and was like getting around on his own. But yeah, he came up, would train with us. We'd mess around with, whatever we were doing that day. There was no like scheduled programming. And then for a while, he was doing his own thing on the side, but he would just come in and do classes.
Yeah. Oh,
But
that's cool.
for like from like September until training for the regionals at the time, he did class and then would do something else. Like he'd be in the class with everybody and people like, oh, I'm going to hang with this guy. No chance. But people like drowned trying to keep up with him on workouts. They like did 2 rounds with him and then it just like fell apart.
Like
I remember
who
they
the
did.
fuck is this guy?
Yeah. I remember we did like Nasty Girls or something. I was like, Pat, you got to do this as an AMRAP because you're going to be done in 4 minutes and everybody, or whatever it is, 5 minutes, and everybody else is going to take like 12 or 15. I was like, dude, this is an AMRAP.
Yeah.
Anyways, he almost doubled what everybody else did in the like 12-minute time frame, right? Like it's stuff like that. I was like, he was so good, and then just like built that base and got better and better and better and better and better. So that's how I met Pat. How I
That's
ended up shooting
awesome.
content for him
Yeah.
was that when I said I moved out west, he had moved out west a few months prior because his wife got a clinical placement, his now wife, at a school at the, I forget what exactly it was, but she's a doctor and she got her placement in Nanaimo, BC, and so
Okay.
they moved up there. Anyways, during the pandemic and everything, I was shooting content. So I was like, hey, do you mind if I come up, shoot some photos for you? Like I was kind of starting to build up that portfolio, build up that resume. He's like, yeah, for sure. There's like nobody else around. So I'd go up, hang out with him, shoot some photos, work out. I'd kind of, some days I'd shoot photos of his like weightlifting piece and like his first 5 pieces. And then I jump in on one of them and then shoot the other 4 or 5 pieces, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic games came up with, like when they had to do the phase 1 of the games, and I got the opportunity to shoot for him because nobody else could go. Like people couldn't travel. So Reebok had hired me to take some photos for them and like a couple other like little things here and there. And so I got the opportunity to shoot photos for him for that. And like, that was my first CrossFit games. Technically it was 2020 pandemic games in Nanaimo, BC.
Oh, I thought it was 2019. Okay.
No,
Cool.
so the 19 stuff I didn't go to when it was like the world thing. 2020 was the first official time I shot the games, but it was like in our backyard essentially. And then 21 went to my first games like media, doing the thing.
Yeah. But man, what you just told, I think I had no idea about all of that, and that's why I wanted to do that podcast, is to get to know these little stories and everything. And I think what we talked about also a little bit with Josie in the previous episode is just like building relationships. And when you see a content creator following an athlete, sometimes it of course came from like business opportunities and stuff like that, but very often it just comes from a friendship, a relationship, or just being at the same spot at the same time and just building that trust between the athlete and the creator.
Mhm.
And it transpired through the content that you were making for him back then. Like he was posting your stuff, and you could just tell that there was like a relationship there, and you were not just hired by a third party to go shoot him.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I'd go up and hang out at his house and like
Yeah,
see him, early days when his son was born and like stuff like that. Like I would, you know, I got the opportunity to do a lot of cool things because of the world being shut down, like nothing was
yeah,
happening. And where we lived in BC, and part of the reason I went out there was because it was probably the most open part of Canada for a while.
yeah,
Um, and so there was a little bit more freedoms and I don't want to say laxities. It was just like it's more relaxed than it is where I currently live and where I was living previously.
yeah,
Um, and so we just had the opportunity to like kind of do more without feeling like the government was going to come and like drop kick us.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
we knew people who were arrested for being in a CrossFit gym by themselves,
yeah. That's crazy, man.
right?
But
Like,
that time it's very paradoxical. Sometimes my English fails me.
mm,
But that time was very rough for everybody, for many businesses,
yeah,
as you witnessed with your affiliate and everything. But it was also such a big moment full of opportunities for many people. Josie was telling me that's when he started like shooting for Craig, because like he was willing to travel when nobody else could. And um, and people were stuck at home, so all you could was being creative and found new ways to create a business or just grow and everything. So I think that year was cool in a way. um
I looked back at the pandemic as a very like transformative time for me,
yeah,
and not in a bad way. Like a lot of good things came from that. Like some sad stuff happened, and people, like I was at an event this weekend, a local CrossFit event, and I saw so many people that I'd either competed with or against or coached, like all kinds of different things. And it's cool to do those, but it's like, man, life 4 years ago before I moved was so different than life is now.
yeah, a lot changed.
A lot
um
changed. Yeah.
so after pandemic
Mhm.
2021, that's your first official media
Yep.
gig. For
Yep.
how did that come into play? Did you go with Pat, or what was like the setup there? And after you talked about that, if you can just tell a bit more about like how was the experience going there for the first time?
I'm trying to remember this. I got my head down. I'm like, what the heck happened? I
Yeah,
believe I went there under Pat and doing media for Pat. Like when you fill out your application, you have to put down who you're working with and all that kind of stuff, and then they have to vouch for you. And there's steps to getting a pass.
yeah,
Um,
or at least it was back then, because now it's different.
I mean, it's similar steps. It's just different, like
Okay,
different barriers, but similar steps of like
because we'll
applying and things like that.
we'll talk about it later. But now, like even just shooting, saying you're shooting for an athlete or a training camp is not even like sure you'll get a pass for that.
Exactly.
Anyway, so keep going.
Yeah, so at the time, so I was on Pat's pass, so I was like, okay, every day we're gonna get you photos, we're gonna get you video or whatever. I actually wasn't doing video at the time, but I would do like some burst stills and like turn them into a little video,
Yeah,
almost like a GIF. And some people still do it, but you'll see it.
yeah.
Back then, it was more popular. David was the guy
David
who
does that a
like
lot.
made that popular back
Yeah.
then.
He
Um,
still does. Like, yeah, I remember he was the one of the first guys I saw doing that. Yeah, sure.
yeah, for sure. And like he like made that cool. And um, yeah, so 20. 21.
21.
Yeah, 21. So I like just kind of started. I just started learning a little bit more video and doing that and learning DaVinci and learning Premiere and trying to like mess around with like editing video as opposed to just editing photos.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, and so
Was
I
Tamane,
can't
did you have
remember
like
where I
your
even
own company?
stayed. I just went about no, like I mean, I had a company.
Yeah.
I'm open a company that's like Justin, Tamane Inc. kind of thing.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't working with like I wasn't necessarily under any big umbrella,
Okay, gotcha.
and so yeah, like Pat I was with, and then um, yeah, around 21, in 21, actually right before the games in 21, I started working for Wadproof,
Okay.
which is like the timer app company that does a lot of qualifiers and things like that. So if you don't know, so I started
Yeah.
working with them, doing media for them, and I had a podcast for a year, like maybe a little bit longer than a year, but yeah, we did like 50 something, 40 something episodes of it, and
I still see
yeah,
you on their reel sometimes
yeah.
in front of the camera.
I'm in front of the camera for them a little bit, or I was in front of the camera for them a little bit, doing
Yeah.
product descriptions and how to use it, and being doing some informative stuff.
Yeah.
So they opened a lot of doors for me in this space as well, for media and connections, and working with people and giving me opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool company to work with. Um,
Nice.
I got a
And
lot of love
how
for
was
them.
that first? Sorry, how was that? Before we segue, how was that first games for you?
It was super cool. I'm trying to think of like, man, it feels like so much has happened since then that like I don't even feel like the same person I was then. But that event was really cool. It was cool to be there. It was cool to be on the floor and like learning, and you kind of a little bit starstruck because I'm not starstruck by the athletes. I'm starstruck by the people, like the like Tyson's, Wooldroids, and um Heber and Mars and like those guys that I was like looking up to at the time. Nico, I'd actually met Nico, I'd met Mariah, and he what did I say? Mars, and
Yeah.
previously because they had come to my gym to film with Pat. So Pat, they'd come in to do the road to the games and all those kinds of things. So like if you look back at some of the old road to the games, they're shot at my gym and I'm in the background of them. I think
No way.
my gym's in the old documentary. I think the 18 documentary.
Sick.
And yeah, so like there's members of my classes and members of my gym that are in there in the background because they're working out with Pat.
Yeah.
So um
That's awesome. So you met
yeah,
them before
so I
going
met
to the
them and like
games.
like so I was able to be friends with them and like interact like a normal person with them, but you kind of fanboy a little bit.
Of course.
So I remember that. I know that I just like I've never been like starstruck by the athletes, and so it was just like cool to see them in person, but I'm like, all right, they're just working out, like whatever.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, it's funny
yeah
you
so
saying that. Like I was also like the first time I went to like a big event was Wadapalooza,
mhm.
and I own like all the athletes like Brooke and all these guys were at each booth of their sponsors. Like there
Yeah,
was like long lines to take pictures with them. I couldn't care less about that. Like I'm more about the human interactions, right? But the only people I wanted a picture was Mars and Heber.
yeah, yeah, it's like stuff like that, like you respect their work a ton, especially like those early the documentaries that you came into this space
And
because of.
just the job that they did back then on those documentaries. I mean, like
Yeah,
we talked about it last time with Josie as well, but it's just yeah, it brought a lot to the sport, and yeah, I think it's great. So you went to the games, but so you saw them, but you already hung out with them before a little bit when they came to your gym. Um, and how was like the media pit back then? How was did you have a good experience?
yeah, I had a good experience. Working with Pat, I got to, and because he was like pretty close. Well, no, he did podium that year, so he
Yeah,
was up there, and they were giving pit passes to people, and it kind of rotated, but they were giving priority to people who were documenting people who were in contention, things like that. So if they're in heat 1, lane 10, you probably weren't getting a pit pass, but you could get access to the stands and all those kinds of things, which I'm
Okay.
going to go out and say is not a bad thing. But because Pat was in first, or not in first, but like in podium contention, I was able to go in the pit.
Yeah.
But I didn't stay in the pit the whole time necessarily, because it's pretty hard to shoot from the pit if you have to shoot across the floor and things like that. So it's actually more beneficial to be in the stands and move around at times.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that some people get a little twisted these days, or get like a little bit like bitter about, that they can't get media passes and things like that. And it's like, dude, it's from a if CrossFit wanted to crack down on people in the media pit and like the content that they're shooting and sharing and all that kind of stuff, they could come down on probably most creators pretty quickly.
Yeah. That would just, as long as you get a chance to shoot from the seat with like a lens
Yeah,
allowance.
if you follow the rules,
Yeah.
if you follow the rules and you have a lens exemption,
Yeah.
you have more freedom than you do as a official credited media person. And
Yeah.
some people take advantage of that and some people don't. And
Yeah.
like there's the professionals who are there and they do their job and they follow the you know the steps.
The
And then
guidelines.
there's
Yeah.
people who kind of stray from the path a little bit and do their thing. And
Yeah.
what CrossFit's trying to crack down on is people straying from the path and doing their thing and not following
Yeah.
the guidelines.
Yeah.
And they've made a 12-inch lens exemption now, which I don't know if you ever used a 12-inch lens, like you're getting into like 400 territory for it to be 12 inches these days.
Yeah.
So
It's just,
you can use pretty much anything. You can use a 100 to 500 from Canon.
yeah. I
I'm pretty
remember the,
100 400 from Sony is less than 12 inches. You can shoot
yeah.
pretty much from anywhere with that thing.
Yeah. So the year you and I physically met in Berlin, I didn't get media pass at that time, and I was shooting from the stands. And at first, I didn't know much about inches. Like, in Europe, it's all like metric system. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Fuck, what? How much is 12 inches?" Because it doesn't sound big. And
Yeah.
then I had just bought a 400, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is perfect! I can shoot with my 400 from the seat."
Yeah.
The only difference is like in terms, so you get different types of contents. Like the only difference is that you get maybe less close-ups or finish lines from the front or all that stuff, which is not necessarily super important, but it's also nice to get, right? So for example, this year we've just applied with Be Friendly Fitness for me to shoot with a media pass. So it'll be my first experience. So I'm not saying it's going to be better or worse, but I'm really excited to see like how it is. We're still waiting for the responses, but I'm really looking forward to see how it is over there, down there. I guess the only thing that I saw as a difference between pit and the stands is that, for example, at Wodapalooza this year, I was just like with the boys. Like we're all in the pit. It's all raining. It was Ava and Julian from Training Culture, and there was Carlos and Bennett, and it was just really cool to be with the boys, hang out, and shoot like side to side. And then I guess like the shooting from the stance experience, you're more in your own bubble, right? Which is, I think, fine for many people, but I guess it's a little bit more lonely as like part of the experience.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're in the pit, you're kind of confined to an area, right? So everybody's there because everybody's confined to the same area. In the stands, it's a little bit more of like a solo experience, but like, if you're there to do a job, it's just like you just got to do what you got to do to get your shot. And sometimes shooting from the stands is better. Sometimes shooting from the pit is better, but shooting from the pit, being on level with that many people also creates its own problems, right? Like, from a content perspective, if you have to shoot somebody in lane 6 and you're standing outside of lane 1, You're
Yeah.
talking about broadcast, you're talking about on-floor media, judges,
Other
um,
athletes.
other athletes. So you can easily almost triple the number of athletes competing or the number
Yeah.
of people on the floor.
Yeah.
And then just people wandering around on the sidelines that are head staff for the judging teams and things like that. And then potentially you're also fighting with scoring, who
Yeah.
are sometimes in the pit, like doing the live scoring.
Yeah.
So, you can easily, if there's 10 athletes on the floor, there might be 30 other people that you're
Yeah.
fighting with to get your content, where, at floor level,
Yeah.
you get like one shot at a shot, but then up top you can shoot around them a little bit and you can do different
Yeah.
things. Um,
Yeah, I remember
so
last year you were like from the stands, like shooting like this, like Danielle,
yeah,
and you was just like, I was like, hey, dude.
yeah, I got my hammer above my head. Like it's like, it's kind of what you got to do to get the angle sometimes, because
Yeah.
if you're trying to get your shot of your athlete from your spot,
Yeah.
you
Um, what? So this year, just curious. This year, what are you going to be in the pit, or did you buy a
I
seat?
don't know yet. No, I don't know yet. I'm still trying to
Yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah.
It's a bad
Fair
answer,
enough.
but I'm still trying to figure that out.
No, good. I was just curious because it'll be my first time, in the pit. So I'm just curious
Hmm.
who'll be there. But circling back, so okay, you went to your first game in 2021, shot for Pat.
Hmm.
What happened between that and Rad? Like, what led you to work for Rad? Because I don't know a lot about the company and its origins and like how it
Oh
started
yeah.
and all that stuff.
So in 2022, the end of 2022, no, excuse me, the end of 2021, they started putting out media on. Sorry, I thought somebody was calling me. They started putting out media on their Instagram. They had probably like 200 or 300 followers, something. But like the early posts were like, kind of like, I forget what it was, but it was like new shoes coming. This is going to be a training shoe, and then I think it was like a couple of like sneaky photos of the shoe, but they're all black, so you kind of couldn't really tell.
Okay.
And then they just started doing what they do with the team at Floro. Tim, who's the head over there at Floro. Well,
Mhm.
there's a couple guys, but anyways, Tim is one of the guys that does a lot of that stuff. And it's crazy, like you see some eye-catching visuals. They had a cool story. They had a cool branding from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And I just saw a couple posts and I was like, this looks so cool. I was like, I love, like, it brought the skate vibes, it brought the surf vibes, it brought like a different um it brought a different vibe than your typical like training shoe, right? They're not
Yeah.
like banging on the door with like, this is like the ultimate shoe for your training experience. It was like, yeah, if you like it, you like it, but here's the like lighthearted, fun vibe of it all.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I just reached out on Instagram, and I didn't really know who, or I didn't know who was behind the Instagram. I didn't know like where they were from, really, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I just was like, dude, this looks so cool. Like, I'd love to be a part of it in some way. Like, I'm going to be at Wadapalooza. If you need somebody to shoot, like if you have athletes, like I'd love to. And I was like, the branding just looks amazing. Like, this is cool. And it's like a very refreshing take to see on this. And it kind of reminded
Yeah.
me of just like sneaker culture. And I was like, um, and that's like what it was. And
Yeah.
so
They
what,
brought sneaker culture to sports and to
yeah.
CrossFit.
And so at the time, it was just like, yeah, thanks. Like, yeah, we're gonna be there, but like, we don't really need anybody right now. Like, it was like a little bit of a different vibe. Like, they didn't have people on the floor wearing their shoe. They were launching, but it wasn't like, like it wasn't like we need a million pictures of people wearing the shoe on the floor. There was never
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was working with Wadproof, and I had to shoot something with Danielle, and we did it. We shot it. It was like up in the stands in kind of the warm up area, and we were just talking after, and like, oh yeah, like we just decided like we're going to announce this. We want to do like an announcement photo shoot to say like, hey, Danielle is going to be Danielle is going to be the first athlete, you know.
Yeah.
And initially, I think they were going to like wait a month, like after
That one.
Wadapalooza. Yeah,
Oh, all
the
right.
double birds in
Yeah.
Wynwood. Yeah. So, anyways, it just kind of was like, hey, are you free tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.? I was like, yes, 100%. Like, what are we doing? And then I met with Ben. Well, sorry, rewind. I'd gone up and introduced myself to Ben Massey, who's the founder of Rad.
Okay.
I went up and introduced myself to him when they were just like setting up their booth and like doing their booth thing. Just,
Yeah.
like, and he kind of just like, yeah, thanks. Like, essentially, it was like, we don't need anything right now.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's nice to meet you. Da 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 da. And I was like, I'm buying shoes either way at this thing. I'm just waiting for them to launch.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was he saying? Yeah, so I ended up, they asked
Doing
me,
the
like,
shoot
we
with
kind of did a little brief
Danielle.
for it. And then I was like, all right, we're doing it. And I got up. We went to Panther Coffee and met there before it even opened.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we just got set up. I just remember Ben had like a big old backpack full of t-shirts and stuff for Danielle to wear.
Yeah.
And we just did like a little walk around Wynwood, just trying to get like different backgrounds and different looks. And
Yeah.
I know Ben had a vision for like what he wanted the announcement image to be, and it was like, we're in the middle of the street. There's like nothing going on. That photo there, you'll pull it up after, but yeah, we're in the middle of the street, and it's like, we're going to do the double birds. We're going to show the front of the shirt. We're show the back of the shirt. She's got shoes on. We kind of walked around. We just did photos, and it was like, just like lifestyle stuff, fun. We found some cool buildings to shoot in front of. I just, shot some photos as everybody was walking, tried to get different looks. And yeah, that photo went up, and it was a super cool opportunity to work with them.
And it all went from there.
Yeah, that's like the beginning of the relationship, right? Like,
Nice.
In the middle of that photo shoot, it went from being like, hey, we're going to drop these in like a month to, hey, we're going to drop these in a couple hours and we're going to announce this. And it was like, hey, can you edit this? And I don't know. Well, whatever. At this point, it doesn't matter. But I was supposed to go with Danielle to the gym while she was training and shoot her training for WODproof.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, can you turn these around? Like, we're going to put this out now. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I was like I was like, I know I'm going to miss content, but she was also shooting with another company at the time. So it was like, I'm kind of stepping on toes if I shoot her doing this, but like, I'm supposed to be with her right now, like shooting her today, but I'm going to edit these photos. And we sat there. I was on my laptop. We were sitting there. And I was like, hey, what do you think of this grade? What do you want? We got the grade down. We got the photos. And when he gets excited about something, he's like little kid excited.
Yeah. It's probably contagious.
Like, yeah. And at the time it was like the photos turned out sick. And it was just like, he's super excited. And I just remember that was like a very proud moment of being like, I brought this, I was able to kind of bring this to life.
Yeah.
And
awesome. When I think about it, Danielle, because I didn't know much about her background and everything, and I got to know it more through the documentary, which I want to talk about a little bit later as well. But when I got to know her a little bit more through the documentary, it makes total sense that she was their first athlete, because she's cool yet edgy. It just matched the vibe that they were obviously trying to portray, to be more like down to earth, not like unfiltered. And I think she was the perfect first athlete to be on that.
Yeah. And there's some cool stories around how that all came to be and that, but I'll let them tell that.
who knows? Maybe one day I'll just I'll talk to one of these guys. But this is
Yeah.
more about media. So cool. I really like the story. I think it's really cool. Like again, you're just there at that moment, building relationships. You know, you just because we're gonna get into a few questions now that I've written down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I I sometimes get DMs, of like people starting out and they're asking me like how how did you get to work with this brand, or how do you do this or that, right? It's about like seizing opportunities when they arise, like you when you were like, okay, I'll just don't do the waterproof shoot and go edit those pictures because they want to post them now. And I'm sure waterproof is fine with that. Now you're still working with them, and they seem like great people, but it's about seizing opportunities. And like sometimes it comes down to just sending a DM, and sometimes you won't get an answer right away, like when they said
No.
like, hey, we're not interested right now, we don't, well, or we don't need anything from now.
Yeah,
um
exactly.
so there's one question that I'm curious about. You don't need to say numbers, but when you because no, but because I talked about it with Josie. He didn't like that question, but I do want to ask it to everyone. Not
Mhm.
so that they go too much into depth with it, but
Yeah.
just like, how did you start approaching charging clients? Like, you know, because I always get the question like, yeah, but I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know what price to put on my work. Like, where do I start and everything? And again, I think it's completely useless to say numbers because we all different. We all charge different, different numbers or whatever. But
Mm.
it's like, how did you start with that? Because obviously you started shooting for free, and then it goes up from there.
Dude, I get this. I have problems with this all the time, with
Yeah,
valuing my work and my time and things like that. Like I struggle with it every day, where I don't have like necessarily a rock solid set of prices and things like that. Like there is a bit of imposter syndrome. Um, but like I know what work I'm going to produce and I know how hard I'm going to work. So I kind of value it based off of that. And like if I'm working, on a single photo shoot that's like a one off, maybe I'll price it differently than an existing relationship or an ongoing relationship that I'll price, um, for, I don't want to say like a special rate, but like it's an ongoing relationship. This is the rate for it.
yeah,
Um, it's tricky because there's a lot of variability, and it comes down to like, okay, what do you need? And that's the one thing everybody says, like, what do you need to live? What do you need to do whatever you do?
yeah,
And it's true. It's like, what do you need? Well, my income here is different than what you would um see in like Southern California, right? Like
yeah,
it just is what it is. But there's a different industry there. There's different people there. Like it's a different world.
yeah,
You know, ideally I want to build a set of relationships that are ongoing. Like I don't want to just do like one photo shoot, here and there just for like a random thing.
yeah,
If it's a cool opportunity, like, yep, I'm gonna jump on it. But
yeah,
um I would rather build like meaningful relationships with good people that like last years.
yeah.
And
And
so that's
you'll get
sorry.
the most out of those. You'll get the most out of
Yeah.
those.
And so
So
yeah, you might have to like take a pay cut to work with somebody, or you might not want to do something and you say it's double what your normal rate is. I don't know, but it
what if they
depends.
say yes?
If they say yes, then you do it and you show up and you put the work in. But either
Yeah,
way, it's like you put the work in and you be a good person, you know, and that's what matters.
100%. Yeah. I love that answer. I didn't necessarily mean to go too much deeper into that, but I love that answer because it's funny. Every time I talk about that, it's always come down to building relationships.
Yeah.
And
Ye-
you
I,
know,
I made a joke today when I was at
yeah,
the gym, and the owner of the gym, her husband, whatever, I'll just say this. Her husband competed in the Masters division, and it was like Masters 44 plus whatever. I can't remember. Anyways, he competed in the Masters division, and she's like, "Oh, so cute. They're all sharing their phone numbers, and they're all, becoming friends." And I was like, "They're not becoming friends at that age. They're networking at that age."
Yeah.
I said it jokingly, but they're all like, that's the thing, is like, you're networking, you're a business person, you know,
For
I
sure.
kind of jokingly said that, but I was like, no, I'm actually serious. Like, this is networking, right? Like, they're not going to go and hang out and like go, like play catch on Sunday. They're going to like
Yeah.
go and, bullshit about business and like maybe make relationships based on that. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
I joke, but it was like a very serious, like, no, this is just networking. Like, you're not going to
Yeah.
go to like your kid's pool party who you just met. You're like, this is business. Like,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I said it jokingly and I laughed at myself, but I was like, oh no, that's 100% serious.
Yeah, for sure. And like when I say building relationship, I don't mean becoming like necessarily BFFs or
Yeah.
dating or whatever. We mean just like building that trust, getting
Yeah.
to know the people you work for and you work with, whether that's the client or the athlete. And the content will be so much better once you build that trust, and the athletes or the people feel like they're in a safe place.
Hmm.
Um, and that's always what I want to say when I got athletes DMing me, no hi, no hello, no goodbye,
Yeah.
no what's your name. During the competition, they saw you on the sideline and they never came to say hello, introduce themselves or whatever. So to me, it all starts from that. I do give out. I will say now, I don't give a shit. I do give out free content to friends, to people I know, to people who, when I one day hit a PR on my clean and jerk, like send me a little message like, man, you're doing so well. Or people who during a competition on the second day, when the only thing I've eaten is a protein bar, who came up to me and gave me a bit of their food. Like it's about all these little moments. And to those people, I have no problem just giving them some content for free. But man, like we were talking about it a little bit in the DMs like earlier. Like, do you get a lot of DMs like athlete and stuff after competitions? Just
You know what? I've gotten a lot of weird ones recently that like are just like, hey, are you going to be at this competition? Or I saw you're going to be at this competition, and like that's it. Like no questions. Like, hey, you're going to be there. Yes,
yeah.
I will be.
So
Um, what can I do for you?
yeah,
Like it's like I'm going to be there. I'm working for somebody, so
yeah,
like there's that. But um, it's just like a weird, like, I think people, and maybe I don't know if it's the athletes being athletes. I don't know if it's because they're young. I don't know if it's because, like there's many factors,
yeah,
but it's not a question of like, hey, we would like to work with you. What are your rates? What do you offer? Yada, yada, yada. It's like, I heard you're going to be there. Period. Send.
that's it.
I don't know
Yeah,
who you are. I've never met you. Hi, my name is blah, 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 blah. I am competing in the so and so division.
yeah,
I'm looking for somebody to do photos and video for me this weekend.
yeah,
Are you available? Like, nice to meet you,
yeah.
you know? But like,
Just,
people just randomly message you, and then like people who don't follow you message you, and
yeah,
like, I don't know who you are. Like, it doesn't even
yeah,
go to my main inbox. It goes to like some spam folder because it, like I don't interact with you. I've never interacted with you. You've never like wrote a comment on my page. Like, I
yeah,
don't know who you are.
yeah,
Like, like,
yeah.
as if athletes are going to hear this, like athletes, like, how would you approach a person in real life? Would you be nice to them and kind and like ask questions, or are you just going to like make assumptions? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
we're people. Yes, we work. We might be there, but if we're there, we aren't just doing this because we are, I was gonna say we aren't just doing this because we like to. Like, we do like to. That's not it. But like, you know, for travel, like, I don't
it's a
necessarily want to be
job.
away from my wife like for an extra 3 days. Like, oh, that's a bad example, but like, I think that people make assumptions about like what we do and the work that we put in. Like
Yeah.
you
Uh,
and I both know that the day starts when the day starts for everybody, but for the creators, everybody is trying to get their content out as quickly as possible, but you cannot shoot and edit simultaneously.
no.
You cannot shoot and eat and edit simultaneously. These things take
Yeah.
time. And so
Yeah.
for some people to make assumptions about how long things take
Yeah.
and how much work goes into it, they've never spent a day in a room, in a
Yeah.
hotel room at a competition with a content creator at
Yeah.
something like Wadapalooza that ends at 9:30 at night. And
Yeah.
you got to get your pictures of yourself running in the water Baywatch style for the next morning ready to go.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, okay, to be the devil's advocate, because
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's a gray area, and I was talking about it with Peter from Coffee Pods and Watts.
Yep.
You know, sometimes I get it. Like they're just not educated about the subject.
No.
They're not
No.
educated about our career. Like they are not content creators. They are athletes, and they have a whole different spectrum of things to worry about, and I get that. So when I get these messages, I don't instantly think, oh, they're an asshole, they didn't ask
No.
how I was or whatever. But always my answer is like, hey, like, sorry, I cannot give out free content, but next time we're at a competition, I would love to get to know you more, and maybe we can share a fit aid or a no code together. And and also it's a good idea to follow me if you like my work, and you'd like to get something maybe in the future. And whenever I say that, some people answer very nicely, and they're very polite. Sometimes they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they leave you on scene, or they assume you're just an asshole, or they're like, oh, I was just asking for a picture or whatever. So I don't think it's like this or that. There's a middle ground, but just in general, building relationships, getting to know the creator, maybe educating yourself a little bit. Like same as us, we're creators. Being a professional athlete is not our career. It's not what we do, but we get to know these people, and when their rest time is, and when they want to recover, and like, oh, they probably did this event, so they're probably tired with this and that, and so we choose our moments when we approach them and how we approach them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just very important to talk about this for a little bit. Segueing into something that's like a little bit in the same subject. What do you feel is the biggest problem in your industry right now, or not necessarily in the industry, but a problem that you are facing often these days?
What problems am I seeing or facing? This is a good question. I have to think about it, and I just got distracted. So, um, you know, it there's always solutions, and I think a lot of it just comes from like I think the problems that we face are more internal problems than external, right? Like we see a lot of like okay, here's an example on Instagram. Instagram's the kind of the content king, right? Instagram, TikTok, whatever you follow. Your favorite creators are on there. The people you like and engage with and like respect are on there, and you look at them and you follow their work and you go, okay, here's the pedestal. And then you follow those people, and then you start seeing all the other people that are in there as well that are really good creators and really, really good. And you start to like doubt yourself. You know what I'm saying? So you get the imposter syndrome, you get the self-doubt, you get all those things because you see it on a daily basis. Your Instagram feed multiplies your interactions just kind of like grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And you get fed all of the footage and all of the creators and all of the things who you start to think that are better than you. And maybe they are really, really great creators. And it's not about that. It's that the self-doubt starts to creep in and the doubts and the learning stops, and then the like anxiety around that grows and grows and grows, and you start going, well, Marius is way better than me, and whoever way better than me, and I can't do that because they're doing that and they're doing that, and then it's like no, like learn, grow, learn, grow, go back to the drawing board, learn, grow. and it's like a constant process of that. And I think that, as creators, there is a lot of self-doubt, and there's a lot of all those things. And I think that the biggest thing that I find, and a big takeaway from me, is that it's like it's always ongoing, and it creeps in there, and everybody goes through it. And I think that everybody will experience it at some point, but we just got to keep plugging away, and like growing and learning, and not letting that type of noise impact us, like, emotionally.
Yeah.
And it can, and it will, but not like dwelling on it. Like, clean your feed, like, get rid of the stuff that you're like, okay, if I'm like, or don't look at Instagram, post and just leave it there, and that's it. But
So
like
that's what
those types of
you
things. Hmm?
so that's what you think is a problem in our industry, is that people get caught up in
I think as
the whole.
creators,
Yeah.
like, I think that there's a lot of self-doubt that goes on between people.
Yeah.
um and it, like, is an emotional thing, and it's a mental thing, and I think that really impacts people. From an industry standpoint, it's just because, like, this is like, content is like everything now. Like, everybody is making content, everybody is doing everything, and it's just like, it's really hard to like not be inundated with like a ton of nonsense, right? Or like,
Yeah.
you have those feelings. And so I don't know if it's a problem within the industry, but it's like a problem within creators and people who are artistic, that, like, you have to deal with. Like, you're constantly comparing yourself to other people,
Yeah.
and it's hard. And I'm not going to say, like, don't do it. Like, you kind of have to do it to an extent, and whatever.
Yeah. 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 No, for
But
sure. And
it's no matter what, and it's the same thing as an athlete. It's the same thing as whatever. It's hard to deal with, and you just have to, like, learn how to kind of stay in your own lane and grow.
yeah.
And that's the best thing, is like, you just got to, like, figure out how you can be happy, and how you can work and do the things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And I know
I love that.
it's a little bit off from the industry thing, because, but like, I don't know, the industry, like, I can't really speak to it. Like, it's hard to, like, speak about the industry, because then it's like, who are you talking about? Brands? Are you talking about athletes? Are you
No,
talking
of
about,
course. I just meant like
you know?
some challenges that you face
Yeah.
within the industry, not necessarily the industry being a problem itself or whatever.
Yeah. I think with being in the industry, I think that's the biggest thing I face, is like that
Yeah.
self-doubt. And like,
Yeah.
I struggle sometimes, that I'm like, okay, I, you get really excited, you shoot something, you get really excited, and you might go home and start editing. You're like, fuck, this is cool. This is the
Yeah.
best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And then you scroll on Instagram for a minute, just because you're taking a dump, and you look at Instagram, and you're like, holy fuck, these people are way better than me. And then you get deterred from editing that thing that you're so proud of.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be like that. You don't need to compare yourself in that way. It's like, I did an event this weekend, Atlas Games, and there's, how many different creators there? There's three of us doing video the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Enrique, Sam, and myself, and we all were doing video, but we were just putting out our own stuff. Enrique did his thing. He stayed, I did my thing, and then Sam did his thing. We didn't share footage, whatever. We all have our own styles and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I could compare and be like, mine is better than them, but his is better than mine, and they're both better at me than this. And it's like, you can't live that way. Like, are
Yeah.
you delivering the content or like, are you delivering the product that the competition wants, or the sponsors want, the athletes want? Like, you
Yeah.
can't compare.
Yeah.
I think
And
that one. Hmm?
I think the one thing I want to say from that just quickly is that there's food for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody likes different foods. So
Exactly.
what you do will be liked by the right people.
Yeah. It's like, you're going to attract your crowd. Like, how does your style fit into this? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to direct and shoot a, like, really cool narrative piece with really great cinematics, and you know really in-depth sound design, and then the company goes, no, just shoot it on a handy cam and we're good. You're like, no, but I
Oh,
got this other thing that I'm going to shoot it on, and it's going to look like this, and we're going to make it like that. And they're like, yeah, but that's not what we want.
yeah,
This is what we want.
yeah. No,
Like I joke
100%.
because we use that little VHS camcorder with Rad from time to time,
Yeah.
and it's like I have a $10,000 Red camera, and then I'm shooting on a $50 VHS camera and using more of the VHS footage than I am using the Red footage. It's
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
but it's like what you're going for as a brand. It's not about
Yeah,
you. It's
yeah,
about like doing your job and doing things. I'm not saying that I want to shoot everything on the Red camera. Like I want it
yeah,
to fit because I want it to make sense and like work and visually be engaging. And it's
yeah,
got to fit. If it doesn't fit, then it's like, well, you know,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's more of a personal decision. And
for
maybe
sure.
you're right, maybe they're right. Like I don't know. Depends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
That's
think
my favorite answer is it depends.
exactly, which is very vague, but also makes so much sense. It just depends. There's no
Yeah.
strict rule. You might have your style, but you might have to adapt sometimes for specific clients. But also, it's
Yeah.
important to your style. Like I got a little bit into my head because at semifinals, anyway, I won't go too depth into that. But I got a bit into my head and I talked with Josie. He's French as well. So he's the go-to guy when I feel a bit insecure or I have moments of doubts. Where and he's like,
Mhm.
how David was kind of your mentor when you met him a little bit with photography and all that stuff. Like Josie he was kind of like my mentor. And
Mhm.
I said, yeah, I've got those doubts. Like, this guy, he makes such cool stuff. Like, I could never do that, even if I wanted to, whatever. And he's like, yeah, but you make, so, I've got my thing, the lemonade. He said, you make
Yeah.
lemonade. You don't want to make green tea. So do your
Yeah.
thing. And then the right people who like what you do will be interested.
Yeah.
And which led you to meet the people from Rad, which leads me to what I want to talk about a little bit before we end the podcast is
I think
how
that's a great line, by the way. You're the lemonade man. You're not the green tea man.
exactly. And I posted in my story, and it makes so much sense. Josie sometimes just throws out these punchlines. Fucking love this guy. But
Applause to Josie there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it gave me some confidence. So, props to him. But so you did your own thing, which ended up obviously, in getting the interest from the people at Rad, and they like the way you work. So the Daniel Brown documentary came out. I think first of all, it was amazing. Obviously, you were not
Yeah.
the only one involved
No.
in it. It was a big team. I think
Yeah.
you guys did such an amazing job. I didn't know much about Danielle. You can get this image, and it just gave me a more in-depth look into her life.
Hmm.
And I was a little bit scared before, and I think it was a lot of people were scared of that, is that it would become a rat commercial,
Yeah.
but it was the exact opposite. I think the only rad thing you see is just like Danielle wearing the shoes
So
or
yeah, there's two things. There's the production intro, which is like, you know, the if it was a production company, they would put their titles in the intro,
yeah.
and then Danielle was wearing the shoes, but not in every shot because there's some
Mm.
stuff from when she was still a swoosh athlete that were in there. There's like, wearing Vans or wearing whatever, and it's not a product placement. Now,
Yeah.
Tone and Anthony Green, um, fantastic job directing it.
Mm.
Matthew, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. Matthew has a hyphenated last name, and I can't remember it. Sorry. Did a phenomenal job editing the piece. I got to meet him when they filmed the big sit down interview in London with Danielle.
Yeah. Oh, is that in
Um,
London? Cool.
yeah, that the sit down interview was in London. That weekend, we shot a bunch of stuff, different campaigns and that, but that was the big thing. Um, sorry. So yeah, Matthew did an amazing job editing it. Tone did an amazing job with the direction and the lead on the documentary and just putting everything together. And
Can you tell a
the
little bit more
thoughtful
about your
progression.
involvement in it?
My involvement was mostly as I I say a DP, a director of photography, but I did a lot of the footage from like the like almost archival footage that was shot over almost 3 years, between games footage, behind the scenes stuff we did for the rad tapes, training in different places for, I guess, the rad tapes and like different rad content. So I'd been with her for a good chunk of events and things like that for almost 3 years, 2.5 years. So we had footage from kind of all of that had gone into it. So that was my main role. And then I was able to shoot some of behind the scenes stuff during the initial interview, or the big interview, the big sit down interview. And then when they shot in Austin, I shot some behind the scenes stuff as well. When they did interviews with Cooper and Dallin and a couple other people that are in it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Are you?
And then I got to edit the trailer, and I had some, like, I was able to give feedback on early cuts of the documentary. So I'd probably seen like, I don't know, like 5 different cuts of the thing.
Yeah. Sick. Was it something that you like wanted to do, to be part of a big project like that, like in the future when you started, or you just like did your own thing and it just came on your lap?
So this is going to go real far back. I've realized that I really like the storytelling and like the behind the scenes aspect of like getting to know people and things.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, when you bought like CDs and things like that, I would always buy the deluxe edition that was like CD DVD combo, because I wanted to see the behind the scenes footage. A lot of the early ones came with like a DVD like documentary of like making the album or a tour video or something like that. And that's the stuff I cared about. I wanted to see like what these people were like. I wanted to see what their lives were like. I wanted to see that behind the scenes. Like I always hated like Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that, because they'd ask like one question and we'd answer it for 5 minutes and that's their segment. I wanted to see or listen to like an hour and a half long podcast with whoever, like Joe Rogan. You get to sit down with Action Bronson for 2 hours. I'm going to listen to that whole thing, start to finish, because I like Action Bronson. I want to hear more. I think it's an engaging thing. I don't want to hear Action Bronson on like drive radio Saturday morning for 5 minutes where he can't be himself.
Yeah.
And so that's what drove me to a lot of the content and things like that. Like I've been watching these for years. Yeah. Every CD I had in my collection was like a double disc, like case, special edition, blah, 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 because that's what I wanted to see. It didn't matter, if it was like, it was Blink-182, if it was Paramore, like it didn't matter. Like I'm a huge Paramore fan. I'm probably a bigger fan of these musicians and whoever, because I got to see those documentaries. Like Under Oath was really good at putting out a documentary with every album. That was like a 45 to an hour documentary. Dan Newman did one on one of their new albums that's like phenomenal. And it's just like, it shows the life, it shows the inside, and maybe it doesn't show all the infighting and things like that, but it shows the behind the scenes and the personalities of these people. And that's what drove me. And so when I got the opportunity to work on the DB, when I got the opportunity to do the rad tapes more frequently, I was like, I'm all for this. This is my kind of dream job, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, they're very run and gun style. Like, so to be able to work on the official documentary, it was like an amazing opportunity. And I wish, like that's the goal. I want to do more of that as things go forward. And like we just put out yesterday a little Rad Tapes documentary with Ben, who's the owner or the founder of Rad.
Yeah.
Owner, founder, whatever. CEO of Rad, where he did he did the Speed Project, Paris Marathon, Boston Marathon, and London Marathons in 4 consecutive weeks.
Holy fuck. So
he did like, the Speed Project is 350 miles. We did it on a team. So he did like 50 miles of running over 2 days. The following week did Paris. The following Sunday he did Paris. The following Monday he did Boston. And then Saturday night, overnight, he did the London Marathon in reverse in the middle of the night. We started at 2 a.m., finished around 6 a.m.
Yeah.
and I got to document that whole process. So I was with him for like a month, traveling around from LA to Vegas to London to Paris, back to London. I came home to Toronto for 2 days, went to Boston, back to London, like all over the place. Got to show, I got to do it, and it's super cool to be a part of that and to be able to be the one that like put it together and edited it and shot almost the whole thing. Eric Castaño shot part of it.
Yeah. Oh, sick.
At the Speed Project. He was with me for that, but then the rest of it I was by myself. So Eric's
Yeah.
got some really dope footage that's in there. And
Love that.
yeah,
Man.
and we just got to put that up, and that's like the kind of stuff I really love doing and putting together. And I think it's that's kind of like where I'm putting a lot of my attention right now.
Where you thrive, yeah. Because I was going to ask you something that I asked last time as well. Josie's like, what's like a challenge or out of comfort zone thing you'd like to get into in the future? But if you're just loving what you're doing right now, then why change, right? But are there some stuff like different shit that you'd like to shoot, but you haven't had an opportunity yet to do?
I think I keep like trying to like pursue new things when I have the opportunity to. You know, just like short form, long form, try to become a better editor. There's almost like too many things to do, you know, like commercial work. Like there's so many different things that you can learn and do, and you know, even like personal content creation, like all those kinds of things. Like you see people like Bennett Looper that's like thriving right now doing like really crushing it, doing personal content and like educational stuff, and he's doing amazing. But you know, there's so many different things. Am I doing what I want to do? For right now, I really, really enjoy it, and I just want to get. I always want to get better at it. Like if I have a goal and I'm driven to something, I'll put a lot of energy into it.
Yeah.
If I don't want to do it, I will push it off as long as possible and not pay attention to it. And so I know that I'm going to try to really put a lot of effort into something when I'm like, that's all I can think about.
Yeah.
And so if you're like, hey, I want you to put together a documentary about, or like, I want you to put together a video about like, I don't know, it might take me like 6 months to do it. Like something I have no interest in. But if it's something I'm passionate about and like, okay, I really want to tell this story, like that's just going to be done in 5 hours.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah. My camera's about to die. I'm going to wave my hands again so you can see this. My camera's about to die.
Good. We're towards the end. So all good. I just had like I always like to finish the podcast with a rapid fire quiz.
Okay.
But before your camera dies, thank you so much, man, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I know I just rambled for an hour and a half.
Man, that's what it's for. That's what it's for. You know, like I'm a yapper, and I love to yap with people, especially about our industry and our jobs and what we go through. And that's what this podcast is for. So thank you so much for sharing everything. I think a lot of people will get some cool insights into like where you come from and like how you got to work with all these people. And then, you know, your wisdom from, because you've been in the game for a long time, I think more than most of us, I think.
Yeah.
Whether that's just CrossFit or just content creation to begin with. So thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, rapid fire quiz to end it.
Okay.
Cherry on top. You can give one of the two answers or just say a third one, or yeah.
Okay.
Sony or Canon?
Both.
Okay.
It's a bad answer. It's a bad answer.
It's fine. It's a rapid fire. All good.
Canon for photo, Sony for video.
Gotcha. Small light kit or big rig with accessories?
I always start with a big kit and end up with the smallest kit possible.
Okay, cool. 2470 or 50 mil?
2470.
Horizontal or vertical?
Horizontal. That's not even a question.
Shooting gymnastics or lifting?
It depends.
Local or international competitions?
I don't care. Give me either.
Cool. Photo or video?
Again, like I love doing both. It depends. This is where it's bad. Is like it's situational.
I know, but that's what a rapid fire quiz is for.
Yeah,
Final Cut or Premiere Pro?
Da Vinci.
Okay. Manual focus or autofocus?
Autofocus, but I've been taking advantage of manual focus a lot more often, especially like for sports. I've been taking advantage of it more often. Focus hold button is like very essential for if
Game
you're on auto.
changer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Media pit access or floor access?
Media pit. I don't want to mess up somebody's workout being on the floor.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. There's just 10 questions.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you. And hopefully it will come out nicely with the sound and the image. It's just my second episode. It's funny how I'm a
I
content
think it'll be
creator
great.
and it's like, video is my job, but podcasting is a whole other level. I had so much help from Chad, who works a lot with Be Friendly Fitness, and Peter
Yeah.
from Coffee Pods and Wads, and Carlos as well, who's got a great podcast, Content
Mhm.
Lab, which you were on as well. He inspired me
Yeah, it
actually to
was.
do this. So
Uh,
it's a whole different thing, man.
yeah, it is. If you need help, let me know. But yeah, it's definitely it's fun. It's fun. It can
Yeah,
be fun, and I
I'll
enjoy
I'll
it.
I'll definitely hit you up. I had no idea you did podcasting for all those years, so that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, if you need something, let me know.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you in Texas. Right? Are you coming?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll see you
All
there.
right. See you
Okay.
there, bro.
All right, man. Have a
Bye.
good one.